One, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency signed into law on June 16th, 2021. This meeting will be conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance by members of the public will be permitted. Okay, calling meeting to order. It's approval of minutes of 10-6. Any updates, modifications, edits?
I didn't notice anything.
Okay. Actually, we can't do it because I wasn't here.
Yeah,
Right?
we can wait until Russ gets here.
Yes, because I wasn't at that meeting, so
I'm gonna
we don't
text
have a
him.
quorum for this item.
I just talked to him a couple hours ago, so he should be here.
Okay. Okay, then let's see. We have notice of intent for 353 to 355 Turnpike Road, map 25, lot 13, replacement of existing septic system. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southborough Wetlands Bylaw, the Southborough Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, October 27, 2022 at 7 p.m. via a virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider a notice of intent for a project located at 353, 355 Turnpike Road, map 25, lot 13. For the applicant and owner, James Watson. The project description is replacement of existing system.
Good evening.
Hi,
Vito
Vito.
Colon, Cornerstone Engineering.
I can hardly hear you. Is it
Oh,
just me?
sorry about that. There we go. Is that better?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Okay. So before we start, I just had to let you know we messed up on the abutter notifications. We didn't send them out. So I just found
At
out.
all?
Not at all. I just found out I went to go, I called the office to get the green cards, and it looks like we didn't send them out at all. So in the end, we'll have to continue this to allow the notification for next meeting. But I was hoping to still at least go over the project. So in case there's comments, we could make those before the next meeting. And then if abutters show up, we can go through everything again. So if you would let me, I could just go through it really quick, just to get some comment back. I don't know how you guys want to do it.
No abutters?
No abutters.
I don't think we can technically move the meeting forward.
Okay,
We just can't, Vito. Sorry.
that's okay. Yep, I understand. It's our mistake.
Yeah, we just can't do it. Right.
Yep.
It'd be like secret squirrel in the background. No way.
Yep. Okay. No, that's no problem at all. I'm sorry about that.
Okay. Errors happen. I get it.
Yeah.
So since we opened it, we have no abutter notifications going out. We need to continue.
Yep.
Without discussion. So to date and time certain, Melissa?
11:17. We could just say 7 p.m.
Okay. Does that work, Vito?
Yep, that's perfect.
All right. Do we hear a motion to continue?
So moved.
Here a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Farrington,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pasamato.
Yes.
Okay.
So I just have to say something that seems silly to me right then and there. When Ben moves the motion and Kevin seconds, and then we have to vote, they obviously are in favor.
Welcome to remote meeting rules.
Yeah, it's just, that just seems like a thing. Sorry. Okay.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you, Vito. Nice to see you.
Yep,
Have
I'll
a
see you
good
later
day.
on anyway.
All right. So the next one's at 7:10. So we have 6 minutes.
If we want to go to the COC for Middle Road, Vito's actually here for that as well.
Vito, come back.
I'm back. Okay.
Okay, Middle Road.
All right. I'm just pulling up my plans here. Do you want me to pull up the plan just so everyone can see it?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so this was the as-built plan right in here. So they did submit their request. Everything was completed. I think that Lucas did have a letter that noted some of the comments we also had noted in there. Essentially, the ones we were looking at were some of the generator was just over the line. That's the 20-foot no disturb buffer in there. So you have a little piece of the generator, a little piece of the patio right there. And then some of the riprap for the outlet from the rain garden. Those are the things that we had noted, and then the putting green extended into the 100-foot buffer. Other than that, the site is stabilized. They did have all their landscaping completed, all the drainage was installed per the plans. We have the roof drain up front, rain garden in the back. All that stuff was installed in compliance with the plans. The septic was redone. Lucas did also note or just question some of the species on the plantings, whether they were straight native or if they were a type of cultivar. I sent it over to the owners and the contractor, and they were trying to track down a list. I don't think that sent over. I don't think he got that into you, Melissa. I don't think, did he?
No.
Okay, so he was trying to track down a list from the landscaper on what the exact species were that they put in. I think that some of them, I don't know if there were questions on whether they were, a cultivar of a native species or if they were just straight pure native. So those were kind of the items brought up in our letter and in Lucas's letter. And that was all.
Okay, thanks. Let's hear from Lucas Environmental. Joe, any
Yep,
further
hello.
commentary?
I think that pretty much covered our comments. I couldn't verify whether the species were a straight species or not. I didn't know if there were many native species. So all the species that were planted that I saw within jurisdictional areas were native species, but I couldn't tell if they were straight species or not. I did know one non-native species planted out there, Chinese silvergrass, but it appeared to be outside the buffer zone. I didn't measure, so I didn't verify that, but I think it's probably just outside the buffer zone. I think that pretty much covers it. The site was stable. I recommend taking out the erosion control barriers. And there were some changes in the plants apparently that were proposed. If we do get a list of species, that would indicate which ones may have been changed, but they were native species.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from other board members? No. Kevin?
No, not for me.
Melissa?
I guess maybe more a question to the minor encroachments in the 20-foot zone. Do we normally just give a waiver for those, or do we request additional plantings, or
Yeah,
how
on
is that
this,
normally handled?
on this property specifically, and they had a previous waiver from the 20-foot because there was some previous disturbance and land debris, yard waste that was in the area that the generator is actually. So there is now in some spots, there's a split rail fence, but there's also already signs stating the 20-foot no touch area as well. Just to put that out there. So there is kind of already those markers there in what we would typically see. So that was kind of the only comment that I had. I would say they didn't, I guess to also help and aid, they didn't disturb anything that wasn't previously disturbed.
Okay,
Makes sense, yeah.
that was my only question.
So just for completeness, for this application in COC, was there a waiver asked for and provided?
There was, I believe, at least a temporary waiver, so not necessarily a permanent waiver, but it was temporary when they were putting in, where Vito is circling right there. Because there's some drainage in there.
Yep. Yeah, they had to go in here and they kind of clean that area out. That was all already cleared, and they went in there. They put some plantings all in down in here, and they had to get this outlet with the riprap around it. So we did ask for the waiver to get this work in there, but it was more of a a temporary disturbance.
So what about the corner of the patio?
Right.
See the little triangle of the patio?
Yep, right there.
Yeah. That's permanent.
Yep. So yeah, so that would be a permanent, I guess, encroachment in there.
And how much is that? What's that area? Do you know?
I think this was 2 feet or I think it was about 2 feet in. So that's probably, less than 5 square feet, something like that. It looks like a 2 by, I think a triangle, so 2 by 2. So it's about less than 5 square feet. It should be. It's a pretty small
Okay.
area.
And what about the deck?
And then the deck was right at that 20 foot. And they set the footings down underneath it. So that was designed right at the 20. So they did put that in per plan where that was supposed to be.
Yeah, we had the condition for to certify that the deck was constructed outside of the 20 foot.
Mhm.
Okay. So does the board feel as if there's been enough mitigation provided on the site to allow for the 5 feet of patio encroachment?
There's an invasives management plan that was part of this that we approved. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah, there was part of that. I think it was down in,
The back.
yeah.
And that's been going and has been successful.
So far, it seems like that. I didn't note any out there. I don't know if Joel could kind of chime in. I'm not a plant expert out there. I didn't see any, but I'm not, I could have missed something. I don't know if in Lucas's review if they had checked at that at all.
Yeah, through the chair, I didn't see any invasives. I didn't go digging through the woods or through the wetlands, but on my walk generally around the perimeter of the site, I didn't note any.
Does anyone recall off the top of their head the time frame that was set aside for that management plan? I don't think it was indefinite. Was it 2 years or?
I don't even think we had something specific. I think it was just part of the overall plan. I can double check. Hold on. This was one of our early COVID permits. Yes, we didn't have anything specific about ongoing or monitoring for the invasives.
Okay. I was just thinking in terms of, if we're going to grant a waiver for a permanent encroachment into the 20 foot, our past practice has been to, list right in the finding the mitigation that we've accepted that we felt offset it. And I was sort of reaching around for some mitigation that's ongoing that we could perhaps make a minor change to mitigate this waiver. I was hoping it'd be as easy as, perhaps increasing the time span by some amount by one more growing season or something like that.
Yeah.
On the invasives. I don't know how others.
I would assume we could do that if you want to increase that, give it another season or something.
How would we do that at this point?
Yeah, that's the only thing I was going to ask is how.
I mean, administratively, I don't know how we would do that.
We have, if you remember, I think 2 years ago, 9 Wentworth was a pool that we required an extra year of monitoring after the certificate of compliance. So we did issue it, and I did follow up. That was one of Peter Bemis's a year later and requested the report. So it is something that if you wanted to do something similar, we could probably do. And I just set a note in my calendar for a year from now that there's a monitoring report submitted for any invasives. You could also kind of include some of the other native plantings as well, just to ensure that the native plantings, we have that standard 80% success rate. So that could be one option if you wanted to go that route.
So first off, I have trouble remembering yesterday. Secondly,
I only remember it because it was in my calendar for a whole year.
okay, good for you. I guess there isn't any teeth in that, but I guess that's okay. Right? I mean, it's best effort, right?
Yeah, and we honor our past practice of, which I think is a really good one
Yeah.
of always seeking mitigation for encroachment.
Yeah. So I guess, Vito, if that's acceptable, we could do something like that.
Yep, that sounds good.
And I think that, Kevin, does that work for you?
Yeah, that works.
Okay.
And you can motion to such that failure to submit shall result in an enforcement order.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
Your teeth.
All right. So with that, do I hear a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 18 Middle?
And this is for both wetlands and stormwater.
Yes.
So moved.
There's a second.
Second,
All in favor?
Farrington,
Yes.
Smith,
yes.
Masamoto.
Yes. Oh, Russ is here.
Russ is here, but I purposely abstained him.
Oh,
He worked on the project, so.
you muted him. Okay.
I nixed him.
Wow. Look out for Melissa.
He shows up late and then he's done. Okay. All right.
Okay, next up is, so you're going to say something?
No, just good night. Thanks for fitting.
Oh, good
me.
night, Vito. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to be rude there, so. I have Zoom fatigue today. I've been on Zoom since 10 a.m. nonstop. Okay, 710, notice of intent, 8 Brigham Street, map 50, lot 54, constructing a new single-family home. Is this the first time this is being opened?
Yes, and this one will have to be continued as well.
Okay, let me read it. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Southwood Wetlands Bylaw, the Southwood Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, October 27, 2022 at 7:10 p.m. via virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider notice of intent for project located at 8 Brigham Street, map 50, lot 54 for the applicant and owner, Whitney Street Home Builders LLC. The project description is construction of a single-family house, septic system, and associated site work. Number 2, abutters not notified, need to continue with no discussion. So 11/17, 7:10.
What?
Day and date certain, November 17th,
Oh, yes, yes.
7:10 p.m.
Oh, gosh. Yep, we're good. I thought you were just chanting numbers at me.
Why is he throwing numbers out?
Yeah, I got a little confused, but yeah.
Sorry.
That's exactly right. God.
All right, do I hear a motion to continue?
So move.
Second,
Second,
all in favor?
Farrington?
Yes.
Smith?
yes.
Gregory?
Yes.
Masamoto?
Yes.
Um,
All right, let's bounce back to the minutes before we forget those. Russ, we had we noticed that we didn't have a quorum with me not being at that meeting and having to abstain. So
Sure. I
Now you're
actually
here,
think
so-
I have a thing on them, so
you have some edits?
I think so.
ready for you.
Or maybe not.
Just want to comment on the artwork above your head.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
No, I don't have any edits.
Okay. So with that, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of 10/6/2022?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second,
All in favor?
Farrington?
Yes.
Gregory?
Yes.
Smith?
yes.
Masamoto?
Abstain. 7:19. I guess we'll just wait a long minute.
Oh, I got 7:20.
Oh, you do. I do too. Okay, notice of intent, 10 Metcalf Lane, map 96, lot 31. It's construction of outdoor sports court. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Southwood Wetlands Bylaw, the Southwood Conservation Commission will conduct a continued public hearing on Thursday, October 27, 2022 at 7:20 p.m. via virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider notice of intent for a project located at 10 Metcalf Lane, map 96, lot 31 for the applicant and owner Christopher Cox. The project description is construction of a sports court.
Good evening. This is Norman Hill from Land Planning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. So since we last met, we've revised the plan. We've changed quite a bit here. So first we sent our land surveyors to the site to locate the corrected wetland flags. And this plan now shows the correct location of the edge of wetland. And while they were there, they also surveyed the location of what is a river. We had missed that this was a river. We had worked on this site before, and it wasn't a river before, but it is now. And we checked the stream stats, and there's 51 acres feeding this site. As you know, it's got to be at least 50. It's 51. And time of year when it's got the lowest flow, it's 0.13, and it's got to be less than 0.1. So there's no way that we can argue that this is not a river. It shows as a solid blue line on the USGS map. So this is a river, and we've shown that on the plan now, and that's exactly where the river is located on the site. It's that blue line. Now, some of the changes we've made, we've moved the proposed sports court out of the 100-foot riverfront zone. So we slid it up the hill much closer to the swimming pool. You can see that gray box there. That's the proposed sports court. And you'll notice that it is above that yellow line. That yellow line is the 100-foot riverfront zone. So we've moved it out of the 100-foot riverfront zone. It used to be in it, and now it's out of it. Now, as mitigation, we're proposing to return almost 2,000 square feet of lawn area. So this whole corner of the yard is all a nice lawn area with a swing set. So the swing set would be removed. And then this portion that we've got polka dotted on the plan, that portion would no longer be mowed. Our client's offering to plant 4 trees, 2 oak trees and 2 red maple trees, and let that area grow back with natural vegetation. So the 1986 square feet is equal to the proposed alteration. The sports court is 1,800 square feet, and the little area around it, it adds up to about 1986 square feet. So it's 1-for-1 give back of wetland. Even though we're not looking to fill any wetland or do any work in the 100-foot riparian zone, we are in fact going to let that lower portion of the yard grow back in natural. So I think that sums it up. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any comments or questions from the board?
Other than just a reminder of the history when I believe it was Ben Stevens and Trask wanted to do all that soil testing out back, Mr. Chairman. I certainly remember doing some permitting to get him across that river, that stream. That's all.
Oh, was that,
You don't
was that in
remember
that
that?
area where there's those 2 solid lines?
Probably was his access. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. See, jogged the memory.
You did.
There is still a path. You can walk down in there. There's a culvert. That's where I first went when I hit the site to see if I could find where the river was. But you can walk right down there, and that culvert is where the river actually passes through that culvert under that path. And then it opens up to a very large BVW area.
And there's that open space easement on this as well, right? Oh, yes, a green. Yep. Oh. Okay. Any other comments from commission members?
Yeah, I'd kind of like to hear what Joe has to say on a couple of issues. First, with respect to the area of impact being 5 and some change percent, it's my understanding that the limit is 10%, so they appear to be under that. I do also recall that there's a requirement for an alternatives analysis of some sort for this type of impact. I may be wrong on that though, and I'd love to get Joe's input.
Yes, for any riverfront alteration, as you had mentioned, it's 10% of the riverfront area or 5,000 square feet, whichever is greater. So they're under that. And there should be an alternatives analysis provided, and generally a narrative regarding how the performance standards of the riverfront regulations are met, to make sure that all the performance standards are being met. I also had a couple of questions. I don't know if you want me to mention those now or not, regarding the delineation of the river as far as where it is off-site, and the riverfront area is shown on the site. Was that actually delineated in the field, or are those approximate based on aerial photos or something?
Yeah, regarding the river, my crew actually fought through the prickers, had tall boots on, and slopped through about 20 to 30 feet of marshland to get to the bank of that river. And it had banks, about 3 feet high on both sides. So they located the nearest bank. And so that's an actual survey location of that bank. Regarding an alternative analysis, when we first submitted this, I didn't realize we were in the riverfront, so I didn't prepare one. But I did learn a little over a week ago that we're in the riverfront. I haven't prepared one. I'm not sure, I mean, what an alternative would be to this. You wouldn't want to put it between the house and the cul-de-sac, and you wouldn't want to put it any closer to the wetland. I don't believe there is an alternative to this.
Joe, do you have another question or comment? You mentioned a couple.
Yeah, well, just getting back to the, just so I understand with the regard to the stream delineation, I see flags that were picked up. So I assume that was delineated in the field. But as you go, I don't know the directions on that, to the right on the plan, the riverfront area is, drawn more or less parallel to the property line. Was that also actually picked up by survey and just not shown on the plan, going further to the right?
We did, and it hooks down towards the bottom of the plan. You see riverfront flag 7?
Yeah.
At that point, you can see where it turns and it goes away from the property at that point. And so we do have a 8, 9, 10 out there, river flags, but they wouldn't fit on the plan when we plotted the plan because it went off the.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with regards to the alternatives analysis, well, first, I'd like to say, after the meeting last time, Mr. Cox, it appears you've got something that is certainly permittable here, and I'm glad that you and Mr. Hill were able to find a solution like this. At this point, it's some administrative, dotting the i's and crossing the t's. We have not, to my recollection, ever waived the requirement for an alternatives analysis. I guess our two options are, if we were to do that, we would have to discuss how we're going to do that and what our justification for it would be, or we would ask for the alternatives analysis. There's always at least exactly one alternative, which is the no build alternative, and the build alternative here is well supported with the mitigation that's proposed. And just to dot that particular administrative I think even in Mr. Hill, just a narrative form of a paragraph or two, addressing the two alternatives, and then as Joe outlined, how you are meeting the particulars of the Rivers Protection Act with the preferred alternative. This doesn't have to be a science project, but administratively, it's something that we're required to ask for.
Well, I'd be happy to do one. Is it possible that you could vote this approved with the condition that I provide an alternative analysis within, before you send the paperwork, like in the next week or two?
That's a question for Joe and Melissa, if that's,
Go ahead, Melissa.
I think we've started to move away from, especially documents that the commission needs to make their vote conditional upon, not conditioning them for approval. So alternatives analysis is probably something that if the commission is wanting to see, we should probably have prior to closing. You know, and unless it's something that we want to lay out kind of tonight, just from the discussions, and kind of make it into a finding of fact of what that alternative analysis would be.
excellent idea, Melissa.
And
If
through the
others
chair,
are-
I don't think I've ever seen a alternatives analysis conditioned. Generally, they're required prior to issuing of an order of conditions.
Joe, does Melissa's idea make some sense to conduct the discussion tonight and get all the information on the record within our minutes?
Yeah, it might be difficult to discuss all. I mean, it's a pretty detailed number of items you need to look at, although you might not need a long analysis. But there are a number of
Let's
things
ask-
that
Can I
should be
ask one
looked at.
question on that, Joe? So, and I just, because I'm not familiar with it, so it sounds like the alternatives would be, we don't do the project. We do it as currently described. We could put it in the front yard, but we have a septic up there. And that's or we move it back closer to the riverfront. Those are the four alternatives. Is that what we're talking about here? Is what else could we do?
For alternatives, as far as location, for a single family house lot, you're really looking at the location on the lot. You're not looking at, for different projects, you look at, potentially other lots and things like that. But for a single family house lot, you're just looking at other locations on the lot. And then the mitigation, whether you're meeting all the requirements. Typically, they want to see 100-foot undisturbed buffer zone, inner riparian zone, and you're providing mitigation, but it's not quite to the limit of the 100-foot inner riparian zone in one area, but in other areas you have more. So, if you provided an argument as to why that meets an equivalent level of protection, that would be acceptable, if acceptable to the commission.
So Chris, if I may jump in here for a second, I think what they're suggesting is that they continue this meeting till the next meeting. And before the next meeting, I prepare an alternative analysis. And then that would allow them to open this up at their next meeting. And they could review the alternative analysis and then vote on the project at the next meeting. When are you planning on building this? You planning on building this next spring? Or?
Well, it was supposed to be last summer, but obviously that's not happening. So, yeah, I mean, as soon as we can. So, I mean, if the weather holds up and we can do it, we'll do it when we can do it. Once
Yeah, so I'd say let's see this process through. Give me a chance to do the alternative analysis, and then they can vote on it at their next meeting.
Okay, that sounds reasonable.
Yeah, because administratively, we cannot take in new information after the hearing's closed, right? Because once we close the hearing, the public can no longer comment. So, I don't see anybody from the public here, opposing this project or needing information on this project or anything like that. But that said, process-wise, Butter could show up and say, hey, I just found out what's going on. So we do need to do our due diligence and adhere to process. So I was hearing everything and listening and trying to figure out if there was a creative way, and I just don't see one myself. So I think the best thing to do here is get the alternatives analysis prepared. There really isn't much in terms of an alternative that's viable here, except no build, as Ben pointed out. So, you're providing mitigation, you've done what you can do, and it's just some narrative around that. As Ben pointed out, it's not a science project.
Nope, that sounds reasonable.
So that said, we're going to continue to the next hearing. Do we hear a motion?
So moved.
There's a second.
Second?
All those in favor?
Barrington,
Yes.
Gregory,
Oh, we lost him.
he's trying his best.
Yes.
There he goes.
There he is.
Smith,
Yes.
Osmanno.
Yes.
Thank you all. We'll
Yeah,
see
thank you.
Good night.
Stay well, thank you.
All right, next, 7:30, continued stormwater management permit, notice of intent, 200 Turnpike Road, map 28, lot 3C, construction of warehouse space, salt shed, and other site improvements. Has this previously been opened?
Yes.
Okay. So in accordance with the provisions of the South Road Stormwater and Erosion Control Bylaw, excuse me, South Road Zoning Code, Chapter 174, Section 13.5, Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40 of the South Road Wetlands Bylaw. The South Road Conservation Commission will hold a continued public hearing on Thursday, October 27, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. via virtual Zoom meeting on the petition of CMJ Ventures LLC for construction of warehouse space, salt shed, and other site improvements at 200 Turnpike Road, map 28, lot 3C. And they have asked for a continuation.
Yes, they're going to have the planning board comments hopefully by the end of this week, if not the very beginning of next week. So they're going to roll all of those revisions into the next edit. And so that planning and Concom can get back on the same track. And we're having one set of plans that are being reviewed by our peer reviewers at once. So this was kind of the best way forward. So we're going to hold off and continue until the next revisions are made.
Okay, great, thanks. All right, do I hear a motion to continue to the next hearing?
So moved.
Second?
Okay.
All those in favor?
Barrington,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Osmanno.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay. So Melissa, I think I printed out a older version of the agenda
Okay.
that you sent. So we have to do a continued business. First up is FY budget decision and discussion and approval.
That is next since we already did the COC. So you're on track. So it is budget season once again. So I've put together a preliminary budget, and the only thing that I have added since I've sent the first meeting information and put this on the Dropbox is after some kind of internal thought process and trying to understand what our next year's goals are going to be as well. We, through the ADA study that the town did, identified some improvements that we should be doing at Breakneck Hill, mostly just at the community gardens. So in talking about doing raised accessible beds, pathways to hoses that are accessible, and I believe like a parking spot or two that would meet those requirements. So we originally, I kept the stewardship line item, which is this one right here, even at 30,000. But I have added 5,000 more into that to solely address those ADA issues at the community gardens, mainly because the community gardens money has a revolving fund. So the fees that go into that fund is what pays the water bill, what pays is if they need new hoses, if the water line, something goes wrong in the shed. And also through the process, stewardship was in front of us a couple months ago talking about a new shed, and the commission did discuss that they'd either want it attached or, one shed to be placed at the community gardens instead of kind of two separate ones that are kind of hobblobbied together. So they are hoping to get that done this fiscal year. And part of that may come out of the community gardens fund and some might come out of the stewardship fund. So because they have only about 3,900 in the community gardens revolving fund, that might take some of the money out of there. So we want to make sure we have ample reserves within the community gardens fund to continue to pay the water bill, and for when the community garden coordinator starts getting ready in April and May, they have enough money if they need to pay for someone to till. Recently, we've had a volunteer do it who lives nearby, so that saves some money. We also have water bills. and other associated costs. So I wanted to try and get the money first into the budget and try and pay for it that way. And I'd rather request the money now in hopes that we can have some increased funding, and worst case scenario, we'd probably just be put back to our even 30,000 if the select board does request to be moved down. So that's kind of the biggest change. I put the standard increases for both my salary and now Laura's is in here as well. I will be here 5 years in September, so I get my $400 longevity bonus.
Whoa,
I know.
5 years already?
So we're horribly also going into the DEP numbers of 1100. And so I've realized that since I've been here in 4 years, we've done over 70 NOIs just in then. So that was exciting. And then I think the only other two minor increases I did is that we'll probably have to record 2 things at the registry. So instead of 105, I put in 210. And the advertising cost, I put up to 200 because the legal ad fee for the dump that we just did came back at 180. So I just need slightly more to cover the rest of it for the next round.
Got it. Okay.
That's pretty much all I got. So the total increase, with the major increase being the $5,000 in the stewardship, brings our overall budget increase to 6.9%. Worst case scenario, if we put down the take out the 5,000, then we're back to about that under 3%, which usually the select board is looking for. So I think this would be the worst case scenario, is that this stays even. Best case scenario is we have it up to 35.
So in FY 2022, our actual was 31.
I don't think some of those items are correct because both of these are over. And I know I didn't spend exactly 700, or we didn't spend exactly 900 either. So I don't think these are accurate, even though I got the treasure. So just as an FYI.
Okay.
But I had that same thought too.
Me 3.
Yeah. I just kind of glanced past that one.
Okay. Any discussion?
Any idea what we've spent this year on that line?
So far, I think it's also a little tricky because we have a lot of the farm dump stuff in there too. So we did spend a little bit differently this year, but I know most of our costs for stewardship come in the spring. And I think right now we're still at the lower end. I think it's only been about 7 from Breakneck because we did about 3 or 4 for the farm dump so far, but I can definitely get the report to show what we are up to date. I think it's sitting on my desk probably.
When does this need to be finalized?
They're asking for November. I forget the date, but it's in November. I think early November, the 9th.
Before our next meeting? Yeah,
I believe so. Yeah, I think that's why I wanted to get it on for today. I mean, obviously, if we have something that we want to continue to discuss, I can send a memo to them stating we need just a little bit more time since we are a board.
That's for the initial submission, right? So there's time after. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll still have all of our. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, I was going to say I was trying to find out whether that ARPA funds, whether EDA compliance was on the list, and maybe we could ask for 5,000 from ARPA funds, but I couldn't find the list in time before the meeting. So, but it might be something to consider.
You said the choke fund. Is that what you were saying?
It's the federal COVID aid.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a list of everything that the select board prioritized, and I thought EDA stuff was on that list, but I couldn't find the list before the meeting to check.
I can always, as part of this, we sit down with the finance team as well, with the town accountant, the treasurer collector, Mark Purple, and the assessor. So I can definitely ask the town accountant if there's anything for the ARPA funds. I know they have, I believe REC is going for some ARPA funds for ADA for one of their fields. So if I think that aspect is, but I don't know if this small of a project they'd want to include that, but I can definitely ask.
And I heard you mention the need of an enlarging a shed or adding a shed or something like that.
Mhm.
That might be a good Eagle Scout project.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, Kevin, how much you guys talked about it at the last meeting, but I know Joyce and Kat McKee have been looking at a lot of options. I know we even tried to talk to Assabet, but they only make a smaller shed and it would have to be in pieces that we then have to put together. So we're still kind of figuring out the final type and how we'd get it installed. But yeah, that's definitely one option. I think there.
I mean, even if, we had to fund some materials, or even the example you just brought up about the Assabet shed having to be assembled on site. The whole Eagle Scout project is about coordination and managing aligning the troops and getting them aligned. All that sort of stuff, right, is what they're looking for. So they wouldn't necessarily have to fund it themselves, but
Yep.
the labor could be there.
Okay, I'll definitely bring it up to them.
All right. In terms of this budget being submitted, we need a vote on that. So do I hear a motion to accept the budget as reviewed and provided here?
Moved.
Okay, there's a second. I'll second it.
Okay.
I can do that.
Yeah. All right, Farrington,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Hossmato.
Yes.
Russ, don't sound so excited.
Oh.
Next one I had is Chestnut Hill Farm Management Plan. You had an update?
Yes. So in the meantime, I have put together and I put up on the Dropbox something that I shared with the trustees and discussed with them earlier this week about I went through the previous management plans, both the original and the last iteration, and pulled out some of the aspects that weren't included in this volume of the management plan. And, a lot of it is very just copy and paste, I think, including some of the history. They talked about adding kind of the history as an addendum at the end so that we kind of have the running information. So if the property is ever transferred, they can just add that. That's the end of the addendum of the site history. But the main part was talking about the farming, as we discussed at the last meeting and is brought up by the Open Space Committee as well. So in speaking with DA Hayden and Mike Francis from the trustees, they were under the impression that NCRS doesn't do conservation plans anymore. And that was what is specifically called out as kind of the farm plan within the management plan, which is really missing. So I kind of took a quick look at the website for NCRS. They did at least list that that's still one of their services. And I thought I saw one for at least a farm that was here in Rutland. So I'm pretty sure they still do them. So they were going to recheck with that. In the event that NCRS does not still do the conservation plans, they're going to turn back to their agricultural team and see if they can at least edit the last farm plan or conservation plan that was created to update it to the same standards as NRCS would do, but at least have it as updated materials. So they've kind of taken what I put together, had a brief discussion and kind of talking about what edits they wanted to make, not wanted to make, but will be making. So I think there's going to be a little bit more internal discussions, but at least they're understanding that they need to clarify a little bit more on the farming aspect. So hopefully we have a little bit more from the next meeting. And also just for reference, I did put on the Dropbox as well. I pulled out the kind of all of the rights that are allowed by the trustees. So I laid out the purposes, and because within the CR, it's very scattered, what is allowed by right, what's allowed with just notification, what's allowed by notification and approval. So I've broken it out into those 3 specific sections. So that's just kind of a document for reference moving forward. If any of the commissioners, have a question about what's allowed, it just puts it in a little bit more of a easily structured format. That's all I got for Chestnut Hill, unless there's anything else from you guys.
I just want to say that last document that Melissa mentioned is fantastic, because trying to parse that conservation restriction, trying to understand what's allowed and what's not is just the way it's written, it causes brain damage. And she pulled out every single relevant piece of information and put it into a bulleted list that's organized in the way you would expect it to be organized. And you can read through this thing in about a half an hour and finally, all at once, understand the conservation restriction. So thank you for doing that, Melissa. It's very helpful.
Definitely helped me. So I'm glad it's useful for everyone else too.
It takes the popsicle headache out of the thing.
Yeah.
Maybe not the whole headache, but at least, the brain freeze at the beginning.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Then I have SMP bylaw and regulations update and changes.
Yep. So from the last meeting, I went through very harshly all the edits that we have made so far. And we talked about a couple things, mostly as it pertained to that kind of subdivision and A&R lot type language. And Ben mentioned the language kind of that's a little bit more specific, and I pulled it out of the EPA's construction general permit. So I couldn't find kind of the harsh language that we were looking for within the WPA, but within the EPA's construction general permit, it talks about it will disturb one or more, and this is about like the common development. So will disturb 1 or more acres of land, or will disturb less than 1 acre of land, but are part of a common plan of a development or sale that will ultimately disturb 1 or more acres of land. And I think it might be easier if I share this so I don't read it at you. And they have this definition of common plan of development or sale, which if we want to have, this language over kind of what's more in there, I think it would be useful to have a definition such as the one that was listed in EPA's, because it really, and I think we can clarify it a little bit more and include, including the submittal of an A&R plan to planning board. But it talks about if there's kind of any public notice or hearing of a property that has common ownership that is somehow subdivided and at one point, or, has different lots, whether they're sold off, different, when it talks about distinct construction activities may be taking place at different times. Those distinct activities, can be the construction of single family homes individually, but by different people. So it's still originated as one single lot under common ownership, and then was subdivided through public notice or hearing through the planning board. So there was an official drawing, a permit application, which would be an A&R that physically demarcated different lots that are now subject to stormwater if those lots ultimately disturb over 1 acre cumulatively.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah. Let me see if I can get at least what we have in place.
The last sentence pulled it all together, though.
Yeah. So basically, if there is any plan that shows lot has been split into multiple for the purpose of construction, then if they disturb over 1 acre on anything that's shown on this plan cumulatively, then they would need a stormwater management permit. So this first one would replace this section, if that's the way that we decide, or we can do a combination of both, which probably what it would be. But then we would add this common plan development or sale to the definition section.
I feel like that works.
Okay.
Also, sorry for steering you wrong, Melissa. I was positive in the WPA, and I was looking myself. I think, I don't know, I may have come across it in the there's an anti-segmentation part of the MIPA regs also. It may have come from there, but this is every bit as good.
In the Wetlands Protection Act, they talk about the parcel of land being subdivided, and if it's, I can't remember if it's greater than 3 lots or greater than 4 lots.
Yeah. Yeah, it's lot specific, not
It's lot
area.
specific,
Mhm. And it didn't have a timeline.
right?
So previously, like before in here, we had within 2 years. But this kind of encompasses, even if it's down the line, you know, it's still to meet the intent of the bylaw, you'd still need a stormwater management permit. And I think it will be a little tricky in the beginning, especially when we hit those lots that do have separate owners. We haven't really had one yet that we've had a common plan of development, but that common plan of development has all been the same builder so far. So I think it will be a little bit tricky. I think regardless, even if we, you know, even the way that the bylaw stands now versus in the future, ensuring that each lot understands that each lot needs a stormwater management permit. And if they're under separate ownership, unless there's mutual agreement, it'll be separate stormwater systems. So it's just something to keep in mind, which we would run into no matter what. But I think we just need to take into consideration what that education part might be when we are faced with a project where there's a common development that the builder decides to sell off individual lots to different companies or individuals.
Where wasn't our goal to try to make this easier to understand?
Well, I think that would be a problem no matter what. I think it's just something we haven't faced yet. So it's just something, because we've always been hit with these SMPs where it's been the same builder so far. So I think no matter what, even for other projects, the first one that we get that has separate people developing each lot within a common development will just be a little bit of an uptick for us, and, you know, kind of making sure that each lot is doing the right thing.
Have we had that?
No, so that's what I'm saying. We haven't had one of those yet. So I think it just, no matter if we change the bylaw or not, it'll happen at some day. So this language doesn't change that, you know, issue in the future, or this addition doesn't. It's just something that we should be prepared for in the future, that this will happen one day. It's a lot easier when it's one builder, because you can have the stormwater system kind of shared throughout the lot, and you can do calculations throughout the lot. But when it's going to be sold off to separate people, then each lot has got to conform with itself. Especially if one's kind of down the line. I think it'll be easier, although you can look at it, it'll be easier on our end, because we can really look at each application as a separate application.
Okay. I'm just running through all these different scenarios in my mind where we've had, you know, like over at off of Fisher Road there, right? We've had some house lots come in years after the subdivision was built, maybe by the same builder, maybe a different builder, but the stormwater infrastructure that was put in place back at the time accounted for that lot, right? So in this case, can they still leverage that, or would they have to do something unique in their lot?
I mean, I think if the builder wants to design something that is applicable for all the lots that you could possibly build, then the commission can definitely still review it that way. And that's, I think, something that we would prefer, you know, having something under one common, you know,
Right.
and so when things do get built in the future, it's already accounted for. Yeah.
So, you know, let's say, you know, Joe Builder comes in and builds out the subdivision, saves 4 lots, but his stormwater infrastructure that he put in place accommodates those 4 lots.
Mm-hmm.
Later on, those 4 lots are sold to 4 different people.
Yep.
And they come back and they in turn build those houses. Does this mean that they would have to come back in front of us for each one of those houses for the stormwater? Well, of course they would, but it could be permitted as part of the subdivision stormwater versus an individual lot bound stormwater design, right?
Right. So if they were to have to file a stormwater permit, it would probably just be, yes, we are certifying that it's already built to design and it's more of a erosion control issue. It's also something that the commission might be able to discuss, that if a subdivision is built, we close out with a certificate of compliance, those lots are never built. And, 5 years later, those houses are built individually. Because we've also put that kind of minor review in there, that might be something that the commission might consider, stating, well, we understand that the stormwater is already in compliance. Therefore, you only need to adhere to our minor stormwater review, which is really just implementing erosion controls and stormwater BMPs.
Okay.
That's definitely something to think about.
Yeah, my point here was not to, burden somebody down the road if the stormwater infrastructure has already been built to accommodate.
Yep.
That'd be like a belt and suspenders.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think when I think of this, I think of like on Middle Road, when we had those 3 lots, it was easy because it was one builder doing it. So it was more, we could look at it as a holistic site, and is the stormwater being mitigated?
Mhm.
If that builder decided to sell each lot off, then we would probably have to look at each lot individually. So it'll still be the process that we do now. I just think we might, eventually we're going to be faced with a common development that they decide to just sell off the lots and not develop it themselves.
Yeah, the other building environmental location I was thinking of was Clifford Road. Right? Those 3 houses on top of the hill, they all shared a common stormwater management solution infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
And those were 3 individual people building those homes.
Four.
Sorry, 4.
Thank you.
Building those homes.
Yeah, so this doesn't take away people's ability to band together and share a system.
Yeah.
It's just capturing,
Yeah.
and ensuring
Sorry,
that.
I'm kind of thinking out loud. I want to make sure we don't paint ourselves into a corner here.
Nope.
Here.
It's good to think about it. Nope. So we're more capturing when those lots aren't done communally with a builder that just comes in front of us with a stormwater permit.
You have to excuse me for a second. The dog is barking like crazy. I'll be right back.
So Ben, you think that language was kind of what you were thinking of?
Yeah, no, I think that works well, and that, will capture the that thing on the southern stretch of Middle Road, those lots down there, or something like Deerfoot Road Extension.
Yep.
Where we just had this big hole in the regs. So I think we plugged that in a way that, there's just no way to simplify the language really. We'd lose important meaning.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. I'm just going to scroll until Mark comes back to find the other section oh, no, it's back up here, actually. Oh, and I think, Ben, you had a question about the subdivision control and law and what the area was for A&R exclusion. So I looked up just subdivision control law, and it literally just states the subdivision of any tract of land into 2 or more lots.
Yeah.
So, I think our local bylaws and what a subdivision is probably more than applicable to if we just take off the 5 or more acres. I'm not sure why that was in there originally, to be honest. But I don't know if you guys had any thoughts on that one.
So, yeah, my worry on this was, occasionally neighbors will do a land swap to allow putting in a shed or a septic system expansion or something, and they're swapping 1,200 square feet. And technically,
Got it.
that is a subdivision of land. You have to go before the planning board to do it. And I just wouldn't want them to even have to come to us so that we can waive the requirement. I was hoping to.
Well, that wouldn't necessarily, I guess that wouldn't, I don't know if that would be a development though.
Yeah. Any residential development or redevelopment proposed. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, we could put of one or more acres. I mean, that kind of just is the minimum of our bylaw if we wanted to have a number in there.
I guess residential development or redevelopment.
Yeah, because I wouldn't call
Yeah,
the construction of a shed a development. That's just accessory structure.
right. Okay.
All right. So the only other thing that came up is when I was thinking about this as the downtown district that is now in place allows for a lot of 5,000 square feet. And any use that isn't allowed by right, or if there is a change of use in the downtown district or anywhere, if there's a change of use of over 2,000 square feet, it requires a major site plan review from the planning board. And that has been our number one, basically, applicability of when they need to come to stormwater. We saw it most recently at 250 Turnpike, while we just had the ANRAD, but they were in front of planning for major site plan because it's a change of use from office space to self-storage, but there's no outside land disturbance. So there's no reason for a stormwater permit. And when I was thinking about the downtown district, our 1 acre kind of takes away that aspect. So we didn't have to worry about that 50% because I also added to the 50%. Oh God, I'm sorry to scroll back and forth.
Get nauseous.
I know. So we were concerned about if the 50% was still going to limit small lots. So I put in when the lot size is greater than 1 acre. So that still kind of takes out those small lots out of consideration. So we don't have to worry about downtown. We don't have to worry about the old residency areas. And so I thought just putting in this brief sentence of subject to major plan review, except when no land disturbance is commencing. So in the downtown district or in situations like 250 Turnpike, where it's an existing building and they're just changing the use of the building, whether it's from office to apartments, et cetera, they wouldn't need a stormwater permit because they're not changing anything exterior. So I think that will help to close some of the loopholes. And since we don't really have a good waiver process for sites like that. So, I would hope that we wouldn't want a permit for something that's really not disturbing anything. So I think that's the
Sounds
two
right.
major changes.
So look at 3.2. And if you read that out loud, any activity that will result in and disturbance, I think the and has to go away.
Land disturbance. There's an L.
Yeah, there's an L, sorry. It's hard to see, but it's, land.
There is?
Yeah.
Oh, there is. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, we changed from soil to land.
okay.
We got a weird loopholes for that one.
Okay.
So I think those are the two kind of things that came out of the last meeting. I'm going to scroll really fast. I'm so sorry. We've agreed to take out the application and the public hearing notice, et cetera, at the end. So that's something that we'll just have, I'm hoping to have electronically on Viewpoint moving forward. So we have a better public record system. And, but other than that, I think we've, besides some fine tuning, I think of adding that definition of the common sale and plan of land, we're pretty close. So I think for the next meeting, I will have both the red line copy and a clean copy uploaded to the Dropbox probably in the next week so that you can take a look through and read it both fresh with no edits and no red lines to see if it makes sense, and then have the red line version to refer to see what those changes are.
Okay.
Is the plan to still keep it in the zoning code? Or you're still trying to move it out? Or
That's something that I think you guys still do need to decide on. Yes, if we want to keep it in the zoning code, I've at least changed it so the appeals go to the Superior Court and not the ZBA. But you still have the decision, yes, if you want to move it out of the zoning code or not.
I can't recall why I got put in the zoning code.
We were told at one point, may have been by Aldo, that it was specifically over the appeal issue, that they didn't want people to have to go to Superior Court if there was an appeal over a stormwater permit.
Well, if that was the case, appealing it to the ZBA isn't a great path at all because they have no idea what to do with it.
Right, it's like appealing a ZBA decision to us.
Yeah,
Doesn't make-
what are we gonna do with
I
that?
think the town got in trouble on that a little while ago too, over, I think one of the Park Central appeals, it was a planning board appeal to the zoning board. And when it actually went to court, the judge said, you shouldn't do that, to have one board appeal another one. You know,
Yeah.
that's what the courts are for.
Okay. So next up, I have 2023 goals and objectives, tasks from OSRP, master plan, et cetera.
Yes. So I pulled out, and I won't share because it would be a lot of scrolling. So if you guys want to take a look at it yourselves, but I essentially pulled out all the goals that we were the responsible party for the open space and rec plan in the master plan. And I also put in there from the open space and rec plan what we were a partner for. So not necessarily the responsible party, but to aid in the other responsible parties to complete it. So out of that, I came up with 8 kind of goals and actions for 2023, mostly based off things that we have already started or in the works. So I have about the ADA compliance with the community gardens and creating a plan and understanding those costs. In kind of tandem in what we've been trying to do the last couple of years is identify 3 potential vernal pools for certification or assessment. Complete transfer of properties to care and control of the Conservation Commission. This is something that I've been working on with the assessor already. And we also had a conversation with Lisa Braccio several months ago now. So I think some of those properties reside with her, deciding what we want to do for that. The concern there was there's a lot of properties that are open space designated that aren't under the care and control of the Conservation Commission. And when myself and the assessor were kind of looking through some of the old town meeting votes, a lot of these were actually originally voted at town meeting to be under our care and control, but were deeded just to the town of Southborough. So a lot of these I think will be a simple deed change to put them under the correct care and control. And then that way they can be, they have the Article 97 proper protection. And we can kind of assess the properties that we should be assessing yearly for encroachments and things like that. So that was the 3rd goal. Number 4 was kind of organize a townwide citizen science event, like a BioBlitz, through an app to get reports of endangered species, but also just wildlife in general. This would kind of go back to trying to have an inventory of some of the both endangered, but also just native species in the area. Number 5 was the conservation agent to assist Trails Committee with furthering of trail connectivity and proper permitting. I'm happy to report that the Trails Committee did receive their Mass Trails grant. So they are moving forward and trying to get that bridge permitted down by the town line off of, I'm blanking, but we did a letter of support for them for the Mass Trails grant a couple months ago. So they did thankfully receive that. So she'll be working on that in the future. Number 6 was complete updates to the stormwater and wetland bylaws for approval at town meeting, which we are on our way. Complete cleanup plan for Breakneck Hill Farm Dump. So the plan creation, fund approval, and cleanup process, which could possibly extend it to 2024. And then the last one was identify needs of the stewardship committee and create annual management plan for Breakneck Hill conservation land. And talking with the chair, I'm hoping that since we do have Laura here now as the admin, that I can start to help stewardship a little bit more and take over their annual activities. So like the rotation of the mowing of fields and things like that. So they can kind of more readily focus on the activities that they have been doing. And they have been struggling kind of ensuring that contractors are showing up on time. So this will allow us to kind of have a better system for contracts and ensuring that schedules are met for the maintenance at Breakneck Hill. So those are kind of the 3 overarching goals and actions. don't have to kind of vote on anything. I kind of wanted to put it out to you guys now. If you guys wanted to kind of digest it between now and the next meeting, and if there's anything you wanted to add or change, this isn't kind of meant to be set in stone, but kind of a evolutionary document. But I think something that we should start to implement moving forward. And I did talk, Judith, a previous member, did stop by today just to say hi. And she was talking about how the master plan group that is kind of seeing through the actions is starting to meet and working on kind of the same thing that we're doing. So we're actually a little ahead of the curve and preparing for what they're hoping that we get done. So we're kind of right on track with what at least the various plans that we have in town would hope us to do. I think that's
Okay.
it.
Anybody have any comments? No? Okay. Thank you for the update there, Melissa.
You're welcome.
Awesome job. So I didn't have anything else other than new and continued business. Did you?
Nope, there's no update on the dump. We haven't gotten any comments back from DEP, unfortunately. I was kind of hoping them for this meeting, but we haven't received them. So we're kind of status quo on that.
Okay.
Other than that, that's all I have.
Okay. Wow. Hour 16. Pretty good. All right. With that said, I guess we're set to adjourn. Do we hear a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Barrington.
Yes.
Gregory.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Pasquamato.
Yes.
All right.
All right. Al, have a good evening.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Night, everyone.
Yeah.